Hi, folks. Welcome to our unclear on the concept moment for this episode.
You are not taking my job.
Well, what do you think, Rikko?
It's quite dramatic. What does it mean?
Well, it sets the stage for today's topic. Can ChatGPT replace software engineers? If you're listening on this as a podcast, you can watch the clip that we just saw on the professorislive.com or catch it on our YouTube channel.
All right, let's roll.
Okay, let's do this.
Welcome to The Professor is Live with Mark Salisbury, Professor of Computer Science at the University of St. Thomas. In each lively 25-minute episode, Mark and producer Rikko Smart dive into topics shaping our world, featuring expert interviews and engaging live audience participation. Discover groundbreaking ideas for the future and timeless wisdom you can't afford to forget, all infused with humor and charm. Leave every episode feeling inspired, informed, and optimistic about what lies ahead. For more bragging about this show, go to theprofessorislive.com.
Hi, I'm Mark Salisbury. Welcome to The Professor is Live. I'm here with my producer, Rikko, that's him down in the corner. And today we're asking, can ChatGPT replace software engineers? Or said another way, can you still make a living writing code? A recent article on the Times of India ran this headline: AI writes 25% of the code in the US. And so should computer science students rethink their career plans? It cites The Atlantic, noting that major US tech companies, that'd be Microsoft and Alphabet among them, now rely on AI to generate nearly a quarter of their code. And according to a 2025 Pew Research Center survey, 48% of Americans believe software engineers will be among the professions most affected by AI in the coming years, more than teachers, journalists, or accountants. Jobs once thought untouchable now feel vulnerable. Meanwhile, computer science enrollment is flattening. Growth among CS majors in the US was just 0.2, that's 0.2 percentage increase this year. Students see layoffs, shifting visa policies, uncertainty about the long-term role of junior developers. CS doesn't feel like the safe bet that it once was. This raises hard questions. Should universities rethink their programs? Should students combine computer science with other disciplines like ethics, bioinformatics, design to stay relevant?
Or should they just give up and drop out?
Oh, man. Well, let's not panic. But it's normal, right, to swing between underestimating new tech and overhyping its immediate impact. So, to get perspective, I reached out to Dr. Joel Schuessler, and he's an associate professor of computer science at Concordia University St. Paul. We're going to ask him to weigh in on AI's real effect on software development. And here's what Joel has to say. Welcome, Joel. We've known each other since our kids went to Concordia Academy. And to get to know you better, can you share with us the significance of your middle name?
Well, I was born and raised in Japan. So my parents were missionaries there from 1958 to 1972. So I was born there and got to spend my childhood in the city of Sapporo in the northern island of Hokkaido. So my parents gave us all Japanese middle names. Mine is Nozomu, which means prayerful hope. Actually, I've got it in the Japanese kanji here.
Oh, that
So
is so cool.
so there's various ways you can say hope, but this one I found out just 4 years ago has that nuance of prayerful hope.
Oh, very
And
cool. Very cool. Well, welcome to our show here, Joel. Let's get right to this. As you know, we're talking about AI and software development. And that's something that's right up your alley because you teach computer science at Concordia University. So given your experience with complex, say, safety critical projects, can AI really replace human programmers?
I don't believe so. I think there are certain aspects to the human being that simply will never be replaced. They might be able to do things faster than we could do them as a human being, but eventually, there's things about heart and hope and life and connection and empathy that the chat bots will never be able to replace.
Yeah, well, I think that's true. And then one of the things is that I think about quite a bit is responsibility, right? I have a friend whose daughter just finished her PhD. I've told this story before in robotics and AI at Michigan. And she got a job with a company in California, and they build robots that put roofing on houses. So one man with a robot can go out and put a roof on a house, and which would take a crew of people several days.
Yeah.
And all that sounds pretty good. But what I think is going to happen is some smart marketing guy is going to go, we don't even need that guy. We'll just send the robot out and he'll put the roof on. And then we're going to see on the news where some robot has torn the roof off the governor's house. Right? And they're going to go, who's responsible for this? Well, it's not going to be the robot.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I think at the end of the day, one of the things that our programmers, our software engineers are going to have to do is it's going to be people that are going to take the responsibility for our programs.
I agree.
That's just my
Yeah.
yeah. So let's get to this next one because you know what we got to drive this with questions here.
Sure.
Is given the state of technology, is there any sign that letting AI write code will reduce project implementation time?
I believe so.
think?
Yeah, there's so much that has been wrapped into the coding of AI that it seems to be able to start to replicate and pull from so many different sources that it seems like it has a great chance of doing things more quickly, more efficiently. And in some cases, it can help with the effectiveness, but we need human beings to help with the effectiveness.
Yeah. You teach classes, I know, in software engineering, and I do too. And one of the things is I let my students use ChatGPT to write Python code.
That's great.
And guess what? It isn't done when they first write it. It doesn't work sometimes. They've got to change it. And I kind of smile when I say, you can just use ChatGPT because I know it takes sometimes more time. It's just like when someone in the old days would give you a piece of code and you couldn't get it to work. It's like more work than to actually write it. And I think that, yeah. So let's go on to this next one here. And I'm doing too much talking. We have guests on here because they know what they're talking about. So, okay. So the main promise of AI is for software engineering is that maybe it can do some of the syntax and some of the code, but does that allow us to focus on what is the hard stuff, design and overall effectiveness of this? Do you think that you see a role for that this can take some of the details of programming away from human software engineers so they can focus on the big picture?
I do believe it will. So sometimes software engineers are caught up in writing the specific lines of code, right? But what they tend to need to do is to go back out to the customer. I asked a couple of, they're late 20s. One was my son, and one was a former graduate of Concordia. my son does queries. He writes SQL queries for a company called Sport Radar, right? and and uh,
Ah,
and they have some chat bots helping them with some things, and so it can help them get to some quickness. But there are some nuanced things that where we need people to do the really, is that what they meant? Is there something underneath? Is
yeah.
there some nuance to that question? He said, about it got to about 95% of what they needed, but there's
Yeah.
some human nuance to it that he had to go back in and do this. In fact, he goes, well, they that was my code there that they used, but they twisted a little bit.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
so some of the rote things, I think it's going to get better and better at doing, and maybe kind of pull from more sources to be able to consolidate this and come up with something that you can say, all right, add your human element to it, Joel, and see if you can make that work. Does that make sense to you, Mark?
Yes, it does. It makes a lot of sense. And one of the things I remember, there were people that I worked at a very large aerospace company in Seattle. I won't name it, but
Okay.
there were people. There were people there that did requirements engineering. In other words,
Yeah.
what is it this program is supposed to do? How does it help people in the long run be able to fix airplanes and fly them and that kind of thing? That's that nuancing I think you're talking about, is we can kind of understand at the end of the day, programs aren't for programs, they are for people. And so I think you're actually put your finger on one of the important aspects of this. Yeah. So here's the other thing. People, one of the things we do, in the beginning of this episode, we talked about how basically engineers are going to, some people are saying software engineers are going to be replaced and we'll just have AI go ahead and write that code. And the thing that strikes me is we have a lot of tools in software engineering, right? I mean, we first start teaching students about functions and then procedures, and then we get to the good stuff, object-oriented programming, and those objects know what to do. I kind of can see, and this is my question to you, I can kind of see that we can move up a level of abstraction. We can have entire applications that we actually can configure and put together and really make more complex and comprehensive software solutions. And so am I just dreaming here, or what do you think?
No, I think you're right on. I think one of the persons that I talked to that was a little fearful that his job was going to get replaced or eliminated, right? He was a software engineer. What ended up happening, I think, is that as long as he was willing and able, he was able to take what he learned and say, let me go out and do some of the systems analysis and go out to talk to people and let me work with the code. Oh, let's take a look at that code. I think it would be a little better if it added this piece to it, right? It sometimes they can't read the nature of the heart of the customer, but I believe we're moving in a direction like that. I teach database design. I have taught that for it's going to probably be 25, 26 years now. And, so you can have the computer generate SQL for you. That's great, right? But sometimes you might need to go back and look at it and go, wait a minute, did they add too much to this that made it inefficient? Actually, it can probably get more efficient. But then I think the customer wants this. Let's go talk to the customer and say, oh, wait a minute, you were totally off, right? So sometimes the requirement gathering side of it, where we have to do that human interface and get to what they really want, is going to be important. Get to their heart, right?
Yeah. And it's the actual requirement for the human being. Sometimes I think we lose that. We think AI is going to do it for us. And it's like that old saying, we're lost, but we're making good time.
Yeah.
we're making a solution nobody needs, right? But man, is it efficient,
would it be okay if I read something from one of your books? I think it's called something else right now.
That would be great. Yeah. And I have to tell people I haven't compensated you to do this, right?
No. In fact, I believe it was a heart thing, a God thing, that I was up in the middle of the night last night and I was able to find this book. This book kind of popped out, so that was something that didn't happen because I did a search, SQL search, so to speak, right? So you're talking about wisdom workers in this book, right? I think you call it something else right now. Is that right? Leadership.
Yeah, I think the latest one, I do call it wisdom workers. And it's the idea that, we build on what we know. And it's our role as human beings to learn. And we use this technology to help us, accomplish what we're trying to get done. Yeah.
And I'm not just trying to butter you up when I'm reading from this book. I totally agree with it, Mark. I just love this. Besides leveraging artificial intelligence, these wisdom workers, people that will have heart and mind, right? Yeah. Employ collaborative leadership and create and apply a learning strategy for everything they do, right? Most notably, wisdom workers will apply methods from the learning sciences and technology to turbocharge their cognitive abilities and hence their productivity. So this is the hopeful part and also the nuanced part. However, they are different. Besides having more brain power, they also have more courage and larger hearts than their predecessors, was what I found last night. I believe God brought me to that section for a reason last night.
Oh, very good. Well, you have just entered the guests on the Professor's Live Hall of Fame. So we'll just go ahead and give you that award for reading that. So thanks for being with us today. This is great. This shines some light for a lot of people when we hear this stuff about how do we use these tools. And so hearing from someone in the trenches like you and been teaching this for a number of years, you can kind of see the path ahead of us. And so we really appreciate that. So thanks a lot, Joel.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Wow. So I need to bring you back. There you are. So you got to love that Joel Schuessler, huh? I mean, did you see how he weaved my book right into the interview?
Seamlessly. You got to have one more often.
Yeah, I think so. You can't beat guests like that. And I know you were going to ask me about why is that picture freezing up? Well, this is what happens when you let me interview people on my own. So my internet wasn't stable and I kept freezing up. So thankfully, Joel, who had the smart things to say, actually his version or his part of the interview came through quite well. But let's get back to the discussion about AI and software engineering. So what's the verdict when people are watching out there? Well, I think we can say that AI speeds up coding, but it doesn't replace the human role of defining problems, designing solutions, and putting them into action. Software engineering is about really managing complexity through abstraction, really being able to build large code blocks by basically being able to bring them together. So AI can create bigger and smarter blocks, but humans still decide what problems really are worth solving.
I suppose otherwise AI might just decide the world needs more AI.
Exactly, right? And forget the real issues that, well, people care about. There's also accountability and design trade-offs. And at the end of the day, someone, not an algorithm, has to take responsibility. So our key takeaway is that AI can accelerate our work, but it can't imagine the problems worth solving. With AI as an assistant, great engineers can build even greater things.
I sense a quote coming on.
You're getting good at this, aren't you? Indeed. As Jim Clark, founder of Netscape and Silicon Graphics, once said, one great engineer is worth 1,000, no, actually said 100 good engineers. So with AI amplifying our abilities, we can create more of those great engineers. Let's check the comments from our live audience and see what's going there. So I have to go and open this chat box while we're here. And look at this. We actually have a comment from Brad. Yeah, Brad Goodham. So very good. Thanks, Brad, for giving us some positive feedback. How about that, Rikko? What do you think about that?
That's progress. If you're watching live, you get to see the behind the scenes moments.
Exactly, right? And for those people out there, I actually know Brad. Brad is Magic Brad, and he does some phenomenal performances and things. And so if you ever get a chance to see him, you need to do that. Okay, that's a wrap on today's episode. Catch past shows at theprofessorislive.com, YouTube, or Spotify. They all have video and podcasts.
Subscribe, share, and join the conversation.
There you have it, folks. See you next time on The Professor is Live.